Greetings, Dr. Jeffrey Scott here, and this is my Market MRI Pro market update pre-market for October 15, 2024. Let's start with the timing model and look at a couple of different things. These are weekly charts of the spider, the Qs, the diamonds, and the Russell. I have a timing model which is based upon price compared to the weekly 30 period WMA and the bongo, which is a proprietary indicator developed by a number of us 20 years ago at the request of Ian Woodward. When you cross above the WMA with a green bongo, you trigger a buy signal, as we did the week of November 6th in the spider, and you stay in a buy signal until you both close below on a day when the bongo is red. So we've not had a red bongo and a close below. You can see the bongos have flipped a couple of times, but we've not closed below that WMA, and thus we've been in a buy signal for quite some time on the spiders. We've recently resumed a buy on the Qs. We're in a buy on the diamonds and a buy on the IWM. So this market continues to be one that I am long with. I have some concerns on the level of market extension. This green line represents a 13-week high-low, new high, new lows. And whenever it gets to the top, it's typical to see somewhat of a pullback or a sideways move. As you could see here, we're getting close to the top at a place you'd expect a pause on the spiders. And this is actually also the Russell down here. Now, the diamonds and the Qs are both lagging a little bit from that extension. So looking at this, I'm in buy signals, but there's enough here to be concerned about that we might see a pause to refresh sometime soon. If we look at a shorter term chart on the daily, let's just look at the buy sell indicator on the bottom, and you could see it remains green. So in a buy on the daily as well, and you could see where we are on the new high, new low indicator, telling me that we are getting extended, but it doesn't mean we have to pull back. If we look at the market brief to get a picture of the performance in the market on Monday, you could see that all the major ETFs were up, led by the Qs and the spider. If you look at the range, everything finished in the upper part, and the IWM, for example, finished right off the highs. You could see new highs and new lows on the NYSE and NASDAQ have turned green. And if we look at one-day change on the various sectors, you could see we were led by tech and utilities. That's an interesting marriage, isn't it? And when we look at my ETF themes, cannabis, data sharing, semis, fintech, genomics, and biotech were the big leaders. The buckets give me another view of market extension. And when we start to see a lot of stocks above the Bollinger Band, which is this 11th bucket, I get nervous. But typically we can get 20 or 30% before we get a reversal signal. Now the thick box is where we were a week ago. And you could see on the, for example, in the NYSE a week ago, we had a lot of stocks below the Bollinger Band. And then what's happened over this week is that number has reduced. In the gray bar down here is a day ago. The red is the last close, which would have been Monday. So the gray bar would be Friday. You could see the number of stocks, whether we look at the NYSE, the NASDAQ, the Russell 1000, or the S&P 1500, the number of stocks below the Bollinger Bands have disappeared, while at the same time, the number of stocks above are starting to creep up. Nothing is at a point where you would expect a reversal, but it is something that we'll keep an eye on. And if we look at another way of looking at breadth, these green lines at the bottom represent something called the Eureka, which are very bullish signals. The red is a Phoenix. The red dots are the Hindenburg-Omen. No new signals really came into the market on Monday, although on the NASDAQ, we are dealing with some recent Hindenburg-Omen signals, which things that signal a potential top. There has not been a major correction that's occurred in the last 100 years that was not preceded by Hindenburg-Omen, but often these omens lead to just a modest pullback. You could see ones we had on the NYSE here, and we had a little bit of a pullback. What else can we look at here? We can go into what I call the JAS layout, and let's load my JAS list. And this is a list of, should be, when it loads up, about, I got to turn off this filter, I'm sorry, of about 3,200 or so stocks, 3294. And what I can do with this is I can do all kinds of things to manipulate to find what's working. One way is I could look at who has the most of my, what I call my impulse indicators, which I'll teach you about over the next few weeks of doing these videos. Let me turn this one off. And let's rank them here. And we'll look at a couple. ALLE or AILE, I'm sorry. Arrowroot Acquisition Company. A very cheap stock, so I probably wouldn't spend much time looking at it. AVNT. This is the type of pattern I like. Uptrend, pullbacks, and breakouts. And here we have a stock that had good volume, breakout, and momentum. This here shows my relative strength versus the spider compared to a moving average. Green means it's stronger than the SPY. Here's my OBV breaking out above a exponential moving average. And this is one that looks interesting. CISS is another cheap stock, which I don't really play with. CLPT is another 4-pointer. And again, here's a big uptrend pullback, double pullback down to the 50 in white and breaking out here on really big volume, also exhibiting a CPR signal. Volume, breakout, momentum, and we got green on the relative strength in the OBV. So one way is just to go down the list and look at the stocks with the big number of impulses. And I like these pullbacks in an uptrend. Another thing that we can do is we can open up the top down and look at all those stocks put into their sectors and get a sense of what sectors are doing the best. So for a percentage move, the leading sector on Monday was the utilities, technology, and then industrials. But I like to look at something that is a momentum indicator. And if I look at the leading momentum, let's flip that around, it shows me, I got to turn this one off. All right. That the leading momentum was technology, industrials, and finance. And that might be where I want to play. Now, if I click on technology, you'll see that there were 506 stocks in that list. And these are the various industry groups. If I rank these by JF, and I look at just the top 3 industry groups in technology, these are the stocks from the top 3. Let's rank these by JF, which is my momentum, proprietary momentum indicator. And let's see what we see. ASML is a very expensive semiconductor stock. As you'll see, it is pulled back pretty far, kind of a loosey-goosey stock. It's below the 200. I probably pass. But one that showed up on my scans over the weekend that really looks like it's getting ready to run is Coin, especially with the strength we're seeing in Bitcoin. You'll notice down here that there are 2 blue dots in a row. That yellow line is the squeeze. These are 2 momentum dots in a row, and when I see them, it typically points out a stock that's likely to run. FICO is a $2,000 stock, so let's skip that. CLAC, KLA Corporation, a semiconductor stock, 3.21% move. And you could see it's already breaking out and running. I'd rather buy it on a pullback than when it's already running. Now, another thing that I can do, which I think is really exciting, turn this off. So I can go back into my impulse view. It's got my 3294 stocks, and I have a number of scans that I built that help me identify leading stocks. And one of my favorite is this K-Force 2 days up, and this identifies a list of stocks that are have had 2 days in a row of that momentum signal. So I might rank these by J-Force again and skip the cheek stocks. So again, another stock that was showing up over the last few days in my model was this Longboard Pharmaceuticals. And of course, today, at least Monday, it was taken out at $59 a share. You could go down the list, Urban Edge Properties. And again, what we're looking at is this 2 bars in a row of momentum, which typically signals a big move. Here's the last time we saw it here. Very similar as what we're seeing right now, coming out of a squeeze, a PSAR reversal, CPR session before, and look at the move that we saw. Stick with the more expensive stocks, NVEE, don't know anything about NV5 Global Inc., below the 200, which skip it. Dawn is another biotech stock, day one biopharmaceuticals, struggling below the 200. And then we'll finish here looking at Mara. And Mara is another play, derivative play on Bitcoin. This is one of the miners, and you could see those 2 dots in a row coming out of a squeeze. I'll teach you about the EMS signal, but it also flipped into a positive EMS buy as well. So here we have a single tool allowing me to look at the market, identify the leading industry groups, take a large list of stocks. Now you could pick my list, or you could pick whatever list here you like, the S&P 1500, the 500, and then you have the ability of diving deep into those in a top-down analysis, looking at sectors and industry, various scans that you can run to have the best come up to the top. And that's my thoughts about the market coming up. I identified a few stocks that I'll throw into my watch list and take a look at the market on Tuesday.